Thanks for having me today. Pleasure to be here. My name is Steve Strumbrass. I'm a minority partner with Purple Cow Organics. I've got about 15 minutes to go through an hour's worth of stuff. I'm going to go really fast, so if you have any questions, and Nate's got all the background information on this. But a little bit of our company, you can see what we're going to talk about today, the points that I want to touch on. But our company has been about 20 years in the plant-based compost business. If you're in the plant-based compost business, you'd say, why'd you put a Purple Cow, as part of your title, part of your product line? It's really about plant-based because of the biological diversity and the fungal to bacterial ratio that's in the products. By using the specific food sources for our compost and consequently the culture media for our liquid biological, you're getting diversity and balance. We don't have to mitigate the issues with high salts. The pathogens, E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, they would not be in any of our products. And then really, like I said, it's about diversity and fungal to bacteria ratio. So the book, or the name came from a book from Seth Godin. Speak to an audience that matters, make a remarkable product. If you can do that, your customers will tell the story. We don't get to determine if our product is remarkable. You do. And if you'll tell our story with passion and conviction, we'll stand out like a purple cow in the field of ordinary black and white cows. There is a handout on this, so I don't have to go through it. We've done a good job of making this category very confusing for those of us in the room. In short, this is what biologicals are. When it's interesting that this is a hot topic, people want to know about using a biological. 75% of the growers in this Iowa Soybean Association group use a biological. Even the experts, though, when they look to test a biological, here's what they tested. They tested a biostimulant, a 2-species, a single in-furrow nitrogen fixer, an in-furrow nitrogen fixing bacteria, and then Altrish. The point that I'm trying to make is even this Iowa Soybean Association, when they went out to look at biologicals, this is what the industry calls a biological. I'm going to pick on Altrish. They would proudly state that they're the only product that can bring a methylobacterium to the marketplace. Methyls can fix nitrogen on the leaf surfaces. DNA sequencing was talked about this morning. When you go through the DNA sequencing of what's in CX1, those are your methyls, those are your methyls, and those are your methyls. So all of those are methylobacterium that are in CX1. It's really 1,000 species of bacteria, 1,000 species of fungi. Our position is we're not smart enough to know which specific microbe your soil or plant needs at any one time. So by providing a broad spectrum of microbes, regardless of the time, you have a better chance to succeed. This is the question that you want to know if you're going to pick a biological, which one gives you the best chance for success. You can't see it, but Ohio State University put together this panel. In order of importance, diversity, always used with the food source. We work closely with QLF because that's a terrific food source. Consistency, buy from somebody you trust. Stack them together if you like. This is interesting because I'd never heard of some of the soluble carbon terms that were used today, but this is exactly what you're talking about with the soluble carbon. If you're using a biological and you're not seeing success, the WEAC number that's been referenced here over and over and over again, there's some importance there. So this would run for 9 minutes if I showed the whole thing. We don't know what a lot of them do. Not even the greatest minds in the world know what a lot of the microbes that are in CX1 do. This was done with the help of the folks at Cornell University. But here's the bottom line as to why a broad spectrum might be worth considering. Yield, fertility, efficiency, nutrient density. Your story about the deer, I would say it's maybe you're growing a better corn crop. That's why the deer are all of a sudden hungry for that corn. Nutrient density, plant health, and we'll talk about solubility, and bioavailability. I was going to take this slide out, but people were referencing it earlier today. The physical qualities of soil, the ability of soil to hold minerals and microbes, the chemistry is the minerals, and the biological part, that's the rest of the equation. 95% of what you do is being driven by the biology. I don't like the term soil quality. I think soil productivity pays the bills, but if you can do that, food quality, personal health, environmental quality. Has anyone heard of David Montgomery? Great book, great author. He's got about 4 books on agriculture. This is the first author that ever connected the dots between the minerals in your soil, the minerals in your plant, the minerals in your food system, and then the minerals consequently that affect human health. It's a great read if food quality is important. I'm not going to go over this real deep. You've got a handout on this. This was a group of industry customers. This is an organic fertility trial. This is the part of the presentation that's carbon, minerals, and biology and everything you do. 30 different treatments, 2 controls. The takeaway here, carbon, minerals, and a broad spectrum biological are a win. You can see the 226 baseline, that's 4,000 pounds of manure down, but to put with an in-furrow application, 20 or 23 bushels on top of that, pretty significant. With a purple cow, this broad spectrum biological was in 2 of those in-furrow. That's a summary of all the in-furrow applications. Again, there's a handout there that'll give you more details. Bottom line, minerals, carbon, broad spectrum biological work in your favor. Something really interesting, of those 30 treatments, 9 had a liquid nitrogen. This pattern is eye-opening to me. When the liquid nitrogen was used alone, you can see the return on investment between 90 cents and $1.79. When it was made better with the QLF carbon, 435 to 622. But again, minerals, carbon, and biology together, you can see the return on investment on your nitrogen there. I am going to spend a little time on this picture because you talked a lot about what we call critical growth stages for corn. V5 is where you're establishing the corn rows. Later in the V11 tassel emergence, getting the corn out of the ground quickly. You can see the corn on the bottom, again, planted with the QLF product and CX1. You see stand count, you see consistency in cob size, you see tip fill. We're definitely interested in the tangible return on investments in your farm. It's interesting, the corn that was planted with biology there, 15% more protein, 7% more methionine. There's a lot of conversations today about sugars, proteins, enzymes, amino acids. Carbon chains are peptides until they, with minerals and microbes, grow long enough to be proteins. So it's really about a mineral, a microbe, and a catalyst that's creating, the goodness that's coming into your cropping system. Catalysts are often a microbial excretion or secretion, an enzyme. Excretion is about digestion, secretion is more perspiration. Here again, tangible, 43% increase in weight. From the road, these 2 sides of the field look the same. It's a little hard to see here, but on the CX1 and QLF side on the right, solid stems versus the hollow stems. Obviously, the weight is tangible, but when you get into digestibility, non-fiber carbohydrates, more milk, constituents, herd health, it is hard to believe that 2 years after this picture is taken, the side of the field on the right-hand side, it was 4 good cuttings of alfalfa, a good quality plow down, went to small grains, then went to corn this year. 2 years later, that side of the field was yielding between 20 and 30 more bushels of corn than the side of the field where the application wasn't made. It's not because the microbes that were applied 2 years ago are still doing that work. It's just that you're getting this system that's going that makes farming, it helps you. I have this here because that same farmer has a 7-way blend, and you just kind of show the nutrient values that could be in a cover crop. It's a pretty good blend, but you can just see we're really talking about mineralization. We're talking about bringing the minerals from what you grow to the soil, back to the plant, the biological digestion to recover some of these minerals that are in the plant from green, brown to black. I'm not going to show this video because I don't have the time, but I think crop residue is probably the number one opportunity to do more than one thing when you're going across the field. Nate can show you this, but when you do a residue application, the residue will just snap as opposed to bend. You're making spring planting easier, mostly from a depth standpoint. You're building soil carbon. Somebody talked about this, 4 steps to carbon: photosynthesis, resynthesis, exudation, humification. That's really about, well, the root exudates. Bacteria can consume the sugars, but it takes fungi to consume the oils and lipids. That's important. We're going to talk a little bit about fertility dollars and biosanitation.
On the left.
I'm not going to show that. It's about 4 minutes and I don't have the time. This picture was from the day we took the video, but you can see on the right-hand side is where the December application of crop residue was done versus the side on the left, which the residue was not done. Again, this is Boost and CX1. And you just see the difference in the next year's crop, and that's mineral cycling. When you think about all the fertility values that are in your residue of corn, soybeans, and wheat, I mean, this biological diversity, yeah, I can't see the top of that, but the mineralization first, and that comes from a broad spectrum biological, because the same minerals that are associated with nutrient or nitrogen cycling are not doing the decomposition. The ones that are doing the cycling are different than the plant protectors. A different book by David Montgomery, but when you talk about bioavailability, mineral cycling, solubilizing minerals in the parent soil, you know, good soil should be 25% air, 25% water. You know, the organic matter number is important. The carbon in that number is more important than the organic matter. And then the rest are kind of, you know, rocks ready to be made into fertilizer. David Montgomery happens to be a geologist. So that link between the rocks, geology, and fertility is biology. This was touched upon this morning. Kind of a problematic fact that growers are facing today. The amount of soil applied minerals and availability of minerals in your parent soil continues to go lower and lower and lower. At a time where you're paying more for your minerals, you know, if you're a grower, you know a grower who's put on X number of pounds one year and it used to work, 5 or 6 or 10 years later, that same amount is not working. I think you can tie that into biology. These are just some you know, you can do it stories about increasing your organic matter, CEC, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, bioavailability. Customer in Florida, a 90-pound increase based on the Haney test in phosphorus. This is a field study transition, on a field transition study. You can see this is kind of an interesting point that was made earlier. You can see the organic matter numbers increase 43.5%. We see this a lot, and it's hard to explain to a grower. You can have a decrease in organic matter after putting on tons of compost. The first year doesn't make any sense, but it's true. The CEC numbers, over the course of the 5 years, you can see the increase there. And this is really just about it can be done. One of the most interesting parts of this, though, and when you look at the P1 and P2 numbers, that kind of increase in the availability, the amount of phosphorus in the parent soil here is off the charts. You'd have to take a geological acid. We're talking about that this morning. The red bar, it really indicates just how much phosphorus is there. The blue bars are the P2 numbers, and you can see the trend line. Now, in this 5 years, there was 78% of Tennessee brown applied, but the P2 numbers increased to 180. The difference there is, you know, biology. The last points that I'm going to touch on before I turn it over to Tim, you know, biology is your friend as it relates to protecting your plant. We're talking about resilient systems. There's 4 modes of action that exist that biology can contribute to. I'm going to talk about competitive exclusion and biosanitation. They're slightly different. This was the University of Arizona was trying to deal with this P pathogen. They contacted us for some help. What you're seeing here is the P root that's protected by biology. On the left, when you didn't have the purple cow inoculant in the purple cow in the inoculant, it's exposed and vulnerable. When the biology is there, it protects the pea. The way they run this treatment or this trial is they'll start the pea, inject the pathogen. Without the purple cow, the peas get dark, diseased. You do the same thing, start the peas, inject the pathogen, and you can't see it, but there's this biological line of defense that's working to protect the peas from the pathogen. Slightly different is biosanitation. The fourth reason why you want to do a crop residue management pass is the pathogens overwinter in the residue itself. Biosanitation is where gram-positive bacteria actually consume a pathogen. Dr. White out of Rutgers is doing a lot of this work, but we've seen this in a wide range of crops. This one I will show. So the sugar is referring to is Boost. It's not a fungicide. It won't ever be registered as a fungicide. It's a proactive, protective, not a curative. That is a result of fall residue application, an in-furrow, and then a summertime foliar. Last slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Tim. This is what every professional that was on this stage today is talking about, that we need to encourage growers, and we're not needing to encourage growers. Growers are coming to the realization that they need to farm for return on investment. Depending on how you feel, farmers might have been misled to think that yield is the only thing that matters, bushels and tons, and over the course of these decades, farmers have done a terrific job increasing revenue. The problem is the revenue is the red line. The problem is the green line is the expenses associated with those increased revenues. And land's not going down, labor's not going down, equipment's not going down, seed technology's not going down. I think it's minerals, carbon, biology. Those are the things that you can rely on to help move that green line down just a little bit, because that flat line on the bottom, which is grower profit, if it stays there for a longer period of time, farming becomes just harder to do. So